Hello and welcome to Perspectives, where we take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we take a look at people's opinion on such issues. I am Ruth Osime. Today, we return to Benue, another massacre. 200 Nigerians killed in one of the deadliest attacks in recent history. The president came after the bloodshed, offering words to a land buried in grief. But words cannot erase the anguish of a people who have lost everything. Worse still, while families were digging shallow graves and ashes still filled the air, school children in Benue were made to stand for hours in the cold rain, shivering, drenched, just to welcome the president. It was an optic disaster. The backlash was instant. In response, waning women clutching placards were paraded, a horrid attempt at damage control after the haunting image of those drenched, shivering children. But it didn't soothe the wound, it only deepened it. An afterthought, cloaked in the costume of empathy. After the president's visit, troops were deployed and orders were issued. But why did it take another 200 lives for this to happen, especially when this isn't the first massacre? Is this a start of real change or just another ritual response that comes too late after the damage is already done? Supporters are calling this a crackdown, but critics see performance, not protection. This is not just a Benue tragedy. It is a national indictment. Welcome to the conversation. We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because coming up is the real business of the day with my guests, Adum and Agba Jalingo. Perspectives will return in just a moment. Well, my two guests on this episode of Perspectives include Adum, PhD, who is a former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice of Benue State, precisely between 2012 and 2014, and he is a respected legal practitioner. He currently leads Renaissance Law Consults in Abuja and is a prominent voice on public policy and governance. While Agba Jalingo is a journalist, human rights activist, and publisher of Cross River Watch. Known for his fearless pursuit of justice and accountability, he has been jailed multiple times for speaking truth to power while working to drive meaningful change in his community and beyond. Gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you both to Perspectives.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let me start with you.
Thank you, former AG. God bless you.
Good morning.
Okay, so let me start.
Thank you, Agba, my brother. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you.
So
God
good to
bless
have
you.
both of you here with me on Perspectives. So let's start with Jalingo. Same strategy, same script. Now, what we keep seeing the same cycle massacre, same cycle. There's massacre, then the outrage, then deployment, then silence. Do you think this pattern is deliberate to wear down public outrage and normalize mass deaths? Because I don't see why it's being repeated back to back over and over again. I'm asking you, Jalingo.
Yeah, but murders in Nigeria have actually been normalized. People feel numb these days when people hear that 200 persons died, 500 persons died. Nobody feels anything. Everybody just moves on. Like, if you hear that 3 people were killed in America or UK, for instance, the whole country will come to a standstill. That's what you watch on CNN for the whole week. They are not going to give you anything on BBC. That's what you're going to see because 3, 4 people died. But in Nigeria, you hear every day that 200, 500 have died and nothing happens. From the latest statistics that are available, from May 2023 to May 2025, statistics from media reports and data organizations have said that 1,045 persons have been killed in Benue State.
Wow.
1,045. And to the best of my knowledge, I cannot remember anybody that has been brought to book for killing 1,044. We are just talking about 200. But on record, the data has shown that between 2023 May and 2025 May, in 2 years, 1,043 persons have been massacred by people that until today, not a single person. The president that day had to even ask the IG. I said, IG, 200 persons have been killed. Why is it that nobody has been arrested? He called the chief of defense staff. Why nobody has been arrested? Director NIA, nobody has been arrested. And these things keep going on. So already I think they have worn us out already. It's
Yeah.
not like they're trying to. They have already worn us out. We don't feel anything again. In fact, some days you wake up, as a journalist, I wake up, you hear that maybe 200 people have been killed in the north. In the southeast, another 50 or 100. In this place, sometimes up to 500 people are killed in this country. And we just move on as if nothing happened. I'm even surprised that Tinubu had to even go to Benue because it's election year anyway, and children had to
But
line
you
up
saying
the
that
streets.
otherwise he wouldn't have gone?
Yeah, we won't go and do what? Do they give a damn about our lives? They don't. They don't give any damn about their lives.
Let me
don't.
draw Adum in this case. Adum, now given the scope of this attack,
Yes.
it's likely involved significant planning and movement between the perpetrators. So why does Benue still lack an early
Yes.
warning mechanism? Do you understand? And a framework, integrated framework that
Yes.
after years of similar attacks, they should have mastered by now with exchanging information. Why does Benue still lack that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruth. You see, the biggest problem about this crisis is the lack of understanding of the anatomy of the crisis. And so if you don't understand or you don't dimension the anatomy of the crisis, you probably won't be able to get, the right premise. And since you can't get the right premise, you won't be able to get the right conclusions or the right prescription. So I think the failure and the consistent reoccurrence of this attack arises from the failure to appreciate both the local political actors of Benue and the security architecture at Benue and at the national level. And because if I dimension this crisis for you properly, if you allow me for like 3 minutes, I'll be able to dimension it properly. Now, this crisis did not start yesterday. And so ordinarily, everybody is aware that there's a crisis in Benue and there's a security challenge, in Benue, because it started first as a Commonweal conflict. Tension over contest for land between initially herders and farmers. And when we talk about herders in Benue, our own understanding and the general perception about people who are engaged in the act of animal husbandry are the Fulanese. So it is placed squarely at the doorstep of the contest between land grazing opportunities for Fulani herders and Benue farmers. That is where it started. At that level, it was a low-intensity conflict, which ordinarily, by the constitutional framework of Nigeria, which under Section 215, subsection 4, authorizes the governor to be able to give orders to the commissioner of police of that state, to be able to deal with the issues of maintenance of law and order. It was proper, to say that Benue political actors or the Benue state government would have been able to deal with this. But as we progressed, by 2013, the character of this crisis had a change. And it changed because of the economic imbalance, power imbalance between the herders and the farmers. For an average cattle, today's contemporary price structure, you can sell a bull between 1 million to up to 4 million naira, depending on the size of the bull. Now, for the average Benue farmer, his economic power is limited by how many tubers of yam, for instance, can you produce to be able to sell to get 1 million naira? Probably about 2,000 tubers of yam. The sheer cost of investment in terms of land preparation, land clearing, tilling, maintenance in terms of weeding and all of that, harvesting, preservation, to be able to have 2,000 tubers of yam to sell at an average price of 1,000 naira will require enormous investment of almost 2 million naira. So the profitability of that business is this. So basically, Benue farmers, although most of them farm essentially for subsistence, whatever is left, they try to monetize it to be able to get some form of economic power. So they were not able to face these Fulanese, who now, after the enactment of the anti-open grazing law by the Benue state government in 2016, felt that they were being pushed out of Benue. So as a result of that, they went out of their way to now ethnicize and introduce a religious content into this crisis. So they went out to recruit mercenary invaders, paying them money to come in and invade Benue State. And those invaders that were coming were indoctrinated on account of the fact that they were being told that what you are going to do in Benue is a jihad. And so, because they were told it's a jihad, they were meant to believe that you were going to fight people who were infidels. So they come in, they look at communities that are vulnerable, attack them without any defense, and because of the Nigerian politicization of the crisis, which is the other aspect of the anatomy of the crisis you need to dimension properly, the federal authorities, the military and the federal authorities have refused to accept the reality that these attacks are being orchestrated by a group of people who are united on an agenda of invasion other than, a contest for land for grazing. So they said we should minimize the narrative management to give the impression that this thing is not a conflict, it's not an invasion, it's a conflict between farmers and herders. But the thing has graduated beyond that. And so both the media, the political class, the military architecture in Nigeria are complicit in the narrative mismanagement, which then gives the impression that this conflict is still at the level of a low-intensity conflict. And to that extent, the response strategy that has been designed both by the federal government and the state government has not been able to meter the tide of this invasion. And then, part of the local political issues is the disruptive transitions that we have had in Benue State since 2015. Now, every governor, because this insecurity has become a political issue, and every campaign season, each of the political parties is campaigning on the basis that if I win, I'll be able to provide you security. If you give me your vote, I will do this for you. I will return the IDPs to their ancestral homes. Now, this has not happened. And because the transitions have been disruptive in the sense that it has been inter-party transitions. One political party rules Benue for maybe 4-8 years, another political party comes in, and then the predecessor is not even given an opportunity to have an interface, a friendly interface, a mutual interface with his successor in such a way that he can hand over to him some certain details and briefings about the security challenges that he faced and how he was able to confront them. So, for instance, when Otom took over from Governor Suswam in 2015, what the first thing he went out to do was to dismantle the entire security architecture that was put in place by Suswam, because he was coming from a different political party and they had a different political agenda. Later on, in the course of his tenure, he realized that this problem was not about Suswam as an individual or about the other political party. So he embraced the populist demand for the anti-open grazing law, which he enacted on the demand of the people. Unfortunately, in 2023, we had another disruptive transition. The new administration, the new governor came in, also on the assurance to the people that, look, within 100 days, I will end this crisis and I will return the IDPs to their ancestral homes. Unfortunately, that has not happened. Then, the narrative mismanagement. In an attempt to seek validation, the governor will say, oh, when I came in, this crisis was located within 17 local governments. I have been able to reduce it to 9, now I have only 3. But that is not like if when you abate the crisis in a particular local government, it means you have contained the crisis. No, it doesn't mean containment, because this crisis is cyclical. It goes round and round from one local government to the other. And so, based on that, the federal government now takes upon itself to say, okay, if the Benue State government too is not admitting, is not telling us exactly what the problem is, then we'll further mismanage the crisis.
Okay, thank you so much.
And then take you to the military. Let me just land on this one.
Yes,
and then take you to the military. Look at
the
comment of the chief of defense staff. He said when he got to Benue, their understanding of what happened in Yerewata, for instance, was that some certain internal collaborators harbored the invaders, gave them food, gave them women, and gave them all sorts of things. Now, that is a blatant lie. That was actionable intelligence. So the question you will ask is, Why did the Chief of Defense Staff, with the availability of all this information, not able to go to the Water, find out those who were responsible for harboring those criminals, because it's actionable intelligence, fish them out, and once you're able to identify them, they can lead you to the pathway to find out who were those people. And then the president's comment, where is the chief of the, why was nobody arrested? Where chief of army staff, why was nobody arrested? Those are just political sound bites. It didn't represent the powers that are invested in the president under Section 130 and under Section 218 of the Constitution, which makes him the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federation of Nigeria. Okay. Because if your commander-in-chief is asking you, where are the perpetrators of this crisis, asking civilians where are the perpetrators of this crisis, then who will we ask? Exactly. Because when we see our commander-in-chief, we are seeing our father, we are seeing our general, we are seeing our, in this war, the president is everything for us. Okay. So I think that there's a whole lot of mismanagement, of this crisis, and that's why the response strategy has been ineffective. Okay,
we are going on the break. We're going on the break right now, and then we'll be right back on Perspectives. Grab your cup of tea and see you in a minute or two. Welcome back to Perspectives. So let's get back to you, Jalingo. Okay. Adum has said quite a lot and covered, a huge amount of information, giving us a huge amount of information that some people otherwise will not have in-house knowledge of. So I want to ask, let's now talk about the optics, because that's the one that is really jarring in this whole scenario. That children were left standing in the rain waiting for the president. And hours later, the government released images of raining women. What does this say to you? Was it a heartfelt concern or a crisis PR, an optic disaster?
I think they just went to do some campaign. Apart from even the kids, you saw some billboards on the road. The streets of Makurdi were adorned with billboards that were talking about 2027, welcoming the president to Benue State, to Makurdi, as if he was coming to do a big party. As a matter of fact, the president did not even get to Yewata, where the incident happened.
He didn't?
He ended up in Makurdi, the state capital. So the idea was to bring people together to just do the usual thing. You see, the problem, not just in Benue, with this ethnic crisis in Nigeria, is that no matter the numbers of people that are killed, nobody ever gets punished.
That's the sad thing.
I said it here the last time I was here, Nancy, on this program, that this country has a way of compensating mass murderers. I said it. And I also remember that after I left here, one of my friends who felt maybe I was referring to him also called me. I should say that on air. And he thought I wasn't speaking. I said, no. As far as you know how to murder very well, know how to kill people en masse, this country, the people that killed those 200 people, they will end up being negotiated with. I'll give you another example from Sokoto State. CD, an 18-year-old girl that wrote a post about the Sokoto State governor on Facebook, was arrested, charged before a court. She's still being dragged. They have made her life miserable. They kidnapped her, injected her, dumped her in the bush.
Wow.
She's still on trial now. Yesterday, the governor of Sokoto State said that he's ready to negotiate with mass murderers, as they call them, bandits now, terrorists. No, you prefer to negotiate with people who are killing soldiers, killing policemen, killing civilians every day, but you are ready to lock up young people. That is what Nigeria is doing, even in Benue State. Since this crisis started, to the best of my knowledge, even as a journalist, I have not seen one person that has been sent to jail. Even the president himself was wondering, why hasn't anybody been arrested? And that is why this country, that's why this crisis is still persisting, because nobody gets punished. Nobody gets punished.
That is what is
I said here, that day I was almost in tears, because I still keep feeling every day that those of us who do not have the capacity to use guns and kill people, once we speak one line, they arrest us, and then we are charged for terrorism, treasonable felony. I had to go to, anytime they read the charges in court, I'll be looking at the judge and the court clerk like, seriously? Agba Jalingo, you are talking about terrorism with me, my name, associated cultism. At the point they said that I had a meeting with all the gang leaders in Calabasa on number something Target Street, and God in heaven knows it today, I don't know what Target Street is. But people sat down, wrote these charges against an innocent person, and I'm not the only one. We are so many of us. Then people who are killing Nigerians every day. Even the president is asking the IG, why hasn't anybody been arrested? But they know the road to our houses. Those of us that have not committed
the same president
crime.
has also said that it should not be politicized. This killings should not be
See,
politicized.
all that committee here there for me, I can still tell you on this program and tell Nigerians and assure them 100%, Nancy, that nothing will be done. Nothing will be done. But I just want to give credit to Professor Oyate, the third thief, who was able to call the crisis what it is. Yeah. Genocide, ethnic cleansing, that is what some people are and unfortunately for us, we are seeing that not just in Nigeria, all across the world has fallen into the hands of people who want to send indigenous people away from their homes and take over their land. From Palestine to Gaza to everywhere, to Benue, to Kaduna, to everywhere. There are some people, marauders, who are interested in taking over people's lands. Okay, because A or B said so.
Now that she mentioned this, let me ask Adum this question. How true is the allegation that the elite rivalries between current and former power blocks are inflaming this crisis? Because some believe security is being used as a bargaining chip in Benue's internal political power play, just like Jalingo has insinuated. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, like I said earlier, Ruth, the contest for political power in Benue, one of the critical issues, if it doesn't occupy 51% of the campaign messages in Benue, is the issue of insecurity. And you can trust politicians. If even the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will take advantage of this this massacre to go to Benue for the campaign optics, how else do you expect that other local politicians will react? Because as the head is rotting, so is the body of the fish also rotting. So I agree completely with those who allege that politics is also part and parcel of the challenge. Because if politics was not part and parcel of the challenge, for anybody who has governed a state, automatically you become a statesman. And for anybody who is occupying as an incumbent governor of Benue State, you must be able to treat those who have been there before you as people who saw the sun before you came. So there must be synergy between those key political actors at that level for the benefit of the people of Benue State, in spite of political differences. Because this is about security. This is about the lives and property of the people. You can't govern over dead people. And so it is a sad commentary. It's a very sad commentary that you had to take someone to come from, like the president, to come to Benue to come and say, Benue people, you, the governor, you must constitute a committee comprised of all your predecessors, including even the military administrator, that ruled Benue, who are alive, and the Tortiv and some other critical stakeholders to sit down, because there must be internal housekeeping first. What is wrong with us? Why are we unable to respond to this? Because like I said, if you dimension the crisis, there is federal complicity and there is also local complicity. There's no question about that. But then the federal complicity is more, because the character of this crisis has gone beyond, like the Tortiv said, it has gone beyond schematics. It is an invasion. And if it's an invasion, it is only the military that can deal with it. If you went to Yerewata and you see the situation in Yerewata, the people are aware. Both the federal government and the state government are aware. And that is why if you go to Yerewata, there's a police station in Yerewata. Then there's also a military section. I call it a military section because the men who are deployed here by the military are less than 20. So it's not even a squad. Now, but for a close border town like Yerewata, which is a frontline, settlement, a market settlement, you need to deploy a minimum of a platoon to be able to create the optics that there's deterrence and there's heavy military presence in this area. So you cannot come and attack this place and go scot-free. Okay, but that has not happened. So if there was political synergy.
Now that you said that, as a former AG yourself, what does this say about the legal limitations of states to protect their own people? Is it time to push more aggressively for state
legal
policing? What? Is it time to push more aggressively? Because, your powers are limited within the state, as you said. So is it time for the state to push more aggressively for state policing? Is it time to take some power away from the federal government?
There is no question
and put it in your state so that you can police
there's no question. There is no question about that, because true federalism requires that states are able to organize their internal security subject to intervention by the federal government. That is what federalism is all about. And so this dysfunctional federalism that we're practicing certainly cannot survive the contemporary security challenges of Nigeria. And I think the earlier we are able to accept that, the better for us. Of course, there are challenges which people say because of the insensitivity of political actors. If you over-concentrate both security powers in the hands of the governor, who decides not to use it for the purpose of securing the lives and property of the people, but then decides to use it to attack his political opponents. What happens? I think the National Assembly should be able to craft a legal framework that is able to assure protection for that. But otherwise, the question of state police in Nigeria, in this contemporary context, it's long overdue, because we cannot continue to rely on the federal government that is in Abuja, that is so detached away from the challenges that are happening locally, and rely on just about 300,000 policemen to police a federation of over 240 million people. Look, when the president was campaigning, one of his campaign speeches, he said he will recruit 50 million young people into the army and into the police. And what will they eat? Give them agbado, give them yam, give them cassava. What has happened to that campaign promise? Because you need more boots on the ground, And then, of course, today's policing also requires, equipment, technology. And technology has advanced so much that the military has a drone center in Abuja. It is possible, if you look at the corridor of the conflict in Benue, you can isolate it, because this thing is happening at the boundary between Benue and Nasarawa State, the boundary between Benue and Taraba State, and the boundary between Benue and some parts of Kogi State. So that whole corridor, it is possible for you to be able to create a militarized zone around that area in such a way that you can meter this tide. But then this kind of deployment that we do, today's deployment is based on the understanding of the federal government that this conflict is mere communal skirmishes. So at that level, what they are deploying, they are not even deploying sufficient military officers to be able to deal with this problem. Okay. So if you dimension the crisis properly, you will know that the type of deployment that is required in Benue is a whole division. If you deploy a whole division of the Nigerian Army into Benue, perhaps you'll be able to. Because we have the 72 Special Forces. Okay. And I wonder what the 72 Special Forces are doing in Benue. You have the Tactical Air Command. You don't see the helicopters flying over Benue until when civil protesters are protesting the death of their loved ones. Yes. Then you see the military will deploy. You see the police with heavy deployment. You see, this whole thing, like Agba said, Nigeria is completely a failed state. Okay, if we cannot guarantee the protection of the lives of the people, then it is now urgent, an incumbent of the federal government to allow state police so that we can take our destiny in our hands and protect ourselves.
Okay, let's go on a break. We'll be right back. We're going on a break and see you soon on Perspectives. Welcome back to Perspectives. Now, Jalingo, let me ask you. From the videos of burnt homes, bloodied fields, and survivors wailing over loved ones, what do you hear in their voices? What does it say about the depth of their pain and the depth of the government neglecting them? What are your thoughts on that?
Maybe I still have the humanity to feel their silent cries and even the loud ones. I think I still have that humanity. But generally in Nigeria today, I'm not quite sure whether anybody still feel the pain.
Well, you think we've been desensitized?
I think so. Something tells me, I see how people die and people just walk over it in this country, and it's quite disheartening. And, Benue, the story of Agatu, how they invade Agatu, another local government, every now and then, and they kill human beings. As a matter of fact, I lost my own brother, who works with the Nigerian Navy in Agatu local government. My younger brother. He was buried about 5-6 months ago. My own younger brother. He's a soldier.
Was a victim of them?
Yes, he was deployed as a soldier to Agatu, and the herdsmen invaded and killed 4 of them. He was in the patrol. My own brother. My blood. We had to take him home and bury him in my village. He died and left his wife and 3 kids. My brother. And everybody's moving on as if nothing happened. People don't give any damn any longer. And it's shocking that that we have gotten ourselves to this.
But not that you even mentioned that. Is there any compensation that the government...
We didn't get any compensation. The only thing, as a matter of fact,
in the call of duty,
there were arguments about whether to give us his body or not.
Really?
Yes, they didn't even want to give us his body. It's because we also have a senior brother who is a rear admiral in the Navy who intervened. That is why the body was handed over to us. But we lost him, and his wife and kids, as I'm talking now, they're the responsibilities of the family. That is the matter that we are facing. So when people die in Benue, it's not just the victims of those who died there. Even those of us that are not from Benue, we have a collateral emotional damage. Like I just said, I lost my brother there, and the pain is still very fresh because it's just a few months ago. And it's horrible to think that you have a government. The constitution says that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. But it's so horrible to think that in this country, you can just see and somebody can walk into your home, kill you, and government will not do anything about it. 200 people slaughtered. And like I will repeat, and the president said, why hasn't anybody? So why wouldn't you allow me have a gun, for instance? Why wouldn't you allow me keep an AK-47 in my house so that the person coming to attack me will know that I can defend myself? But you don't allow me to. And then when they kill me and I go and protest, then you pack a crowd and go and lock them up for protesting so they want to be heard. So the country wants you to be killed, and they don't even want you to shout. Because after killing the 200, those that came outside to say, what is the meaning of this? The governor was the first person to fire the CPS. Because the CPS joined the protesters. The governor fired the CPS. Because as far as it's concerned, nobody was supposed to say anything. And the ironic thing, Nancy, is also that I want to remind the public that in 1999, Benue State has had two Reverend Fathers as governors. Reverend Father Adasu and Reverend Father Alia, AKS alias Hayansit. They are Reverend Fathers, men of God, supposedly. But Benue State has remained one of the worst governed states in Nigeria, both in terms of resource management and in terms of security. I don't know where we are going to run to again. I really don't know where we are going to run to, particularly for people that are looking for help from government. They brought a federal task force in 2018 and mobilized soldiers, Navy, Joint Task Force to Benue State. And recently they brought what they call forest guards. The team that my late brother was part of was also federal government efforts to see how they can control things in the state. But it is very clear that everybody they are sending to that place is either they are complicit or they are incapable of helping the people to stop this violence.
But now that you mentioned...
And I put the blame on government squarely. Government is trading with this crisis. There are people that want state of emergency to be declared in Benue State.
I was just going to ask
the secretary to the government of the Federation is from Benue State, and I know that he's having issues with people at home. The politics between all of them, they value the next position they are going to hold than the lives of people. And they are ready to give out any number of lives. I know that Benue State is contiguous to Crossover State. You can trek from Obudu. You can trek from the Federal College of Education in Obudu into Vandikia local government. You can trek. There's no bridge. You can trek. It's actually logs of wood that they use to do the boundary. So we know the same. In fact, there's no farming year. There's no farming season that the people of Vandikia and my people in Obudu don't fight a communal war. Every year is a given. So we know ourselves very, very well. And I'm surprised. These were small skirmishes, like we're saying. But now, the dimension that this thing has taken, it is very clear that there are people in government who are stalking these embers, who are funding this violence just to be able to maintain their political relevance. And it's a very, very unfortunate
Not just
thing.
political relevance, declared a state of emergency, another state...
And even the emergency will give them relevance now. The emergency in Rivers has made somebody feel like, yes, I got
almost
you.
Similar to what is happening in Rivers State now.
In fact, in the case of Rivers, they didn't kill 200 people.
No, they didn't kill, but...
somebody somewhere just went and pulled it from the drawer and then declared state of emergency. But we have places all over the country where people are dying, nobody is declaring state of emergency. So some individuals just feel that for the rest of us, our lives are not as important as theirs. They can always use our lives to play politics and maintain their position in the country. And it's a very terrible thing. But one thing they should know is that, well, I don't know whether it is my lifetime or another time, but one day I'm very, very hopeful. I'm not going to say God will help us, no. I know that the people will decide what they want to do with their lives.
But the people have been under oppression and suppression for so long that I think it will take extreme radicals.
We will manufacture ourselves one by one. Sometimes I wish that half of Nigerians were like me. These people will not mess around with us. That's the truth of the matter. Because we will sleep in the front of your house till daybreak. How many of us will look in? But it's unfortunate that people... Fela asked that question until he died.
But the people have also lost the will to fight.
I know one die. I know one quench. I know that's it. But me, I'm ready to fight. I will fight. And I fought I fought. You can't cheat me easily now. You cannot cheat me easily. And I wish that every Nigerian would
but
do
how
that.
many have? They're not enough.
That's the question. We'll continue to multiply. But Nigerians must get angry. I will insist. We need to get angry.
So you think we haven't gotten angry enough as it is?
People are not angry. If you're angry, you show it now. When you're angry, you show it. People cannot be angry and remain in their houses. Because, see, we need to teach these politicians a lesson.
But is it not also hunger infrastructure that is playing a role in this?
I used to think there's a hungry man that can be angry. If you are well fed, you won't be angry. The more they keep us hungry, that's even the more reason why we should get angry. I had an incident where we were driving and the convoy of a speaker of a particular state house of assembly, let me not mention, was coming at us and where they wanted us to stop. At the point they crashed into a vehicle and I came down to ask the speaker. Of course, the policeman had already slapped me. And I was asking the speaker, when he was in the car.
No, but the speaker saw you.
He saw me.
Did you see the policeman?
He knows me, the speaker knows me. So when he saw there was me, I said, which law in Nigeria, for God so loved the world, says that if a speaker or a politician is coming, we should clear the road for you? You are not emergency service. You are not 911. You are not going to rescue life. As a matter of fact, most of the time when you see Nigerian politicians blowing sirens and going out, sometimes they are just going to meet their girlfriends that they kept in the hotel. Because if actually they were working, what problem have they solved? If they are actually rushing to go and work. In countries where leaders are solving problems, they don't use sirens. They don't use sirens. It's only emergency services that you. In most times, I tell you, maybe they have kept a girlfriend in the hotel for 5 days. The girl is angry with them on the phone. That's why they are blowing siren with a convoy of 30 vehicles. They just want to go and see one small 22-year-old girl. In most, I'm a journalist. I've seen it several times, and I'm not playing. I am saying the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. In most times, most cases, they are not going to work. They are not going anywhere. They block the road and stop everybody from moving because they want to go and meet one 22-year-old girl in a hotel. It is happening in this country till today. And
but we have to be careful how we make these accusations because
I know some.
We don't want to incite.
Some of them are my friends.
No, but we don't want to incite.
Some of them are my friends.
Discord or even more aggravation.
It's
already on ground as it is.
It is well.
So we have to be very careful not to just paint all of them in one color.
May God help us.
So let me ask you, Mr. Adum. Now that you've heard how strongly Benue citizens and indeed Nigerians feel about this massacre and this bloodshed, as a lawyer, first and foremost, what are the most urgent reforms Benue needs, legally or structurally, to stop these future massacres? And what must happen right now to protect the vulnerable?
Let me start from the very last bit of the question, which is what must happen now before I can deal with the structural and the legal, aspects. What must happen now is a full militarization of the conflict zone. And I said that conflict corridor starts from Apa Agatu local government to Gwe West local government, to Makudi local government, to Guma local government, to Logo local government, Ukum, Kwande, and then down to Katsina. And that is the northern part, the northern border of Benue with Nasarawa, Kogi, and Taraba State. And when I talk about militarization, I mean the full deployment of a military, contingent, more like a peacekeeping mission to ensure that then that entire corridor is not just policed, it's militarized to ensure that there's deterrence, so that these invaders would not have any access to come into Benue again. So that we can now start the structural rebuilding process. And the structural rebuilding process is to be able to have that kind of peace and harmony return to Benue, so that we are able to return these IDPs and displaced persons back to their original ancestral homes, so that we can avoid the preponderance of ungoverned spaces in these areas, and the people can go back to some form of economic activity, to sustain themselves, so that they are no longer IDP, that IDP status, can be cleaned away from them. Because the people who are in IDP camps, if you go there and see them, they are living in very vulnerable conditions. Very difficult. Look, it's the rainy season. And if you go there, most of them are sleeping in the open. They are exposed to pneumonia. They are exposed to cold. to all kinds of common fever and all kinds of diseases, cholera and so on and so forth. Even the latest displaced people that were taken from Yerewata into the Makurdi International Modern Market that has turned to an IDP camp. 2 people died the day after they were taken there, 2 children, and then a pregnant woman. And so these people are not living in the best of conditions. So if you do that, then those structural then the intervention that was promised by the federal government in terms of reconstruction, rehabilitation, and resettlement. There was a 10 billion naira pronouncement by the federal government in the days of President Buhari when Vice President Yomi Oshibanjo, in similar circumstances, visited Benue. That particular pledge commitment has not been fulfilled. So the federal government should move back structurally to go and reconstruct, implement that particular proposal. Because if you are doing that for other states like in Borno, Yobe, and others affected by insurgency and all these others, so you direct, for instance, the North Central Development Commission that has just been, constituted by the federal government. The federal government should push them to start the reconstruction of those settlements so that the IDP people can go back to their lands. Then legally, of course, like we earlier mentioned, one of the first legal issues to deal with is the question of devolution of powers. And I'm glad that we are in the season of constitutional amendment, and the National Assembly is dealing with that. So I expect that all the governors that are affected by insecurity at this level will come together with the speakers of the State House of Assemblies, and push for the constitutional amendments that will guarantee them the opportunity, to have this issue of state police settled once and for all. And other legal structures that must be put in place to ensure that even when state police is granted, the governors are also restrained from abusing the powers that are inherent in them as chief security officers of the state. Then, of course, the president must also keep his commitment. This is also part of the structural issues, not legal anyway. The president must also keep his commitment, his campaign promise, to improve the recruitment of men. Because the Nigerian army, the Nigerian Air Force, the Nigerian police, because Nigeria is at a state of war. So the president now must be very proactive. He must keep his campaign promises. He knew this when he was campaigning as a candidate. Now that he's an incumbent, he's 2 years into his tenure, he can't seem to have forgotten the most primary thing. And like Agba Jalingo said, under Section 14, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the welfare and the security and the protection of the property of the people is the primary responsibility of government. So the president must fulfill that campaign promise. The Nigerian military needs additional boots on the ground. It needs more equipment and, of course, training and retraining. And then for this particular conflict, we have the Nigerian National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies in Kuru. We have the Nigerian Defense Academy. We have all kinds of military intelligence institutes that should study, like I said, the anatomy and the character of this conflict. It is no longer a Commonwealth conflict. This is an invasion. And this invasion is being orchestrated by people who are not even Nigerians. Look, unlike the CDS, who said the people came and slept there, information at our own disposal, because we also have information gathering powers, indicates that the cell that came to do the attack in Yerewata were those people who were displaced as the Lakurawa cell in Kwara and Niger State. It is that displaced cell that moved into Benue. 2 days after that attack, why the CDS was making this comment, yesterday, these same people attacked Mangul and some other local governments in Plateau State. And they also went and attacked Taka local government also in Benue State. So they know the people are still within. So except you do a full military deployment, to comb the forest and comb every nook and cranny of that particular environment. And it's very easy. Like I said, if you form a corridor round Benue from there, you take it up, cover Taraba, cover Nasarawa, cover Plateau. Then you push these people. So you'll be able to ambush them and then to identify them. Good enough, the Commissioner of Police of Nasarawa State reported that they have arrested one person who was part of the group that perpetrated the Yerewata mayhem. The problem you will have is that in spite of the positive assertions of the Commissioner of Police that this man has been arrested, there will be no investigation, there will be no thorough pursuit of his accomplices, because he can name them. He can lead them to where they are, so they can arrest them, and the law will take its course. But lastly, on the issue of legal, the Nigerian criminal justice system has failed. That is why crime is on the rise and crime is thriving in Nigeria. If you want to restore peace and normalcy in Nigeria, then the criminal justice administration system must be alive and awake. Why is the Federal Attorney General prosecuting private defamation matters in the High Court? And the Federal Attorney General cannot prosecute one criminal that is caught in this whole exercise. Why are we deploying resources for the wrong things? What is wrong with us? Don't we have work to do? I defame you, then it becomes the duty of the state to charge me into court. Why are they charging Senator Natasha to court for defaming Akpabio? Isn't that a civil matter? Yet you don't have resources to prosecute criminals.
Okay. I was charged to court for, I stand a defamation trial for more than 2 years because I said that the wife of the brother of my former governor did not write her law school exams, and I was taken to court and tried for defamation for 2 years. Before then, I was tried for treasonable felony.
Because that's the type of country we are running.
Yes, I was accused of attempt to
That's the type of country we are running.
Attempt to overthrow Buhari, and they were reading these charges in court to me. And I was standing there and looking at the judge and everybody in court, like me, I want to overthrow Buhari.
Can we strand?
So I want to say again, AG, that I'm very impressed. Even here in the studio, I've told Nancy that it's a good thing that you have all the time to talk like you are talking. I can feel your emotions. You are from Benue State. I'm your neighbor, and I've also insisted that I think you should be given more time to, because Nigerians need to know what is going on. You have been in government before, you're a statesman yourself, and you have spoken very well about Benue State. As pained as you are, but unfortunately, I'm not from Cross River. I'm not from Benue, rather. I'm from Cross River. We have lost, let me also tell Nigerians that we have lost 2 people in insurgency. Not just 2. My village, where I come from in Bedia, every compound has a soldier. Every family compound in Bedia village has a soldier. It was a deliberate decision of our community to defend ourselves. My own father, we have several soldiers in my own family. I would have been one too, if not because of personal decision. Because we wanted to defend our family. And we are tired of receiving dead bodies. We lost a major in the crisis in Kaduna. A young boy, the compound is next to my own. My brother, as a matter of fact. They killed him, and until today, the circumstances are still not clear, how he died. They didn't even give us his body. The only thing they handed over to his father was his shoes and a sword and a uniform. That's what the father took home. A young boy that graduated, he was the academy senior under officer. That's like SUG president in the NDA. He was a major, killed.
No, but I want to ask you, especially Jalingo, because you said you chose to fight the battle in a different form.
Yeah.
Your brothers and family, they decided to go with guns.
So I couldn't take
But
orders.
you have decided to use your words to send
I don't know
your
how to
message
take orders.
Exactly. So I want to ask you, how can journalists and civic actors further ensure that what happened in Yelewata isn't lost in the next news cycle? What role does storytelling and archiving play in long-term justice and remembrance?
Honestly, it's the reason why I'm here today. Because I feel the need for us to continue to tell Nigerians so that we can continue talking. Because for the politicians, our lives do not mean anything to them as far as they continue to stay in power and continue to eat their money and build houses that they will not live in and buy cars that there are no rules to drive on. Because plenty of them buy cars, they stock them in their houses. They will never drive those cars beyond 1 kilometer away from their houses. And they build houses that they will never live in. They don't give a damn about us. So Nigerians, we must continue talking. Thank God for social media. We will continue to educate ourselves. We must not give up. Journalists in Nigeria must, I will say it again, that journalists should realize that journalism is not just a job to earn a salary. It is a tool to change society. And when things are happening, we must be able to speak out, and not just speak out, to take a position. I said it not long ago on a sister TV station that I'm tired of neutral journalism. I'm tired of sitting on the fence as a journalist. I'm a human being, and we have moved on to advocacy journalism. If issues come up, we should be able to take, when you see clearly that there is a genocide in Benue State, as a journalist, you should be able to call it genocide. Don't sit on the fence. And I think that's the only thing that will change. This idea of the 5 Ws and the 5 H and the 5 Ds and the balancing or no balancing has failed to change society. There's no impact. We need journalists that are courageous. Journalists that have the courage to be able to say A when it's A and to say B when it's B, regardless of... The worst that can happen is that they were arrested. Sometimes you get killed. But after all, death is a characteristic of every living thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Agba Jalingo. And thank you so much, Mr. Adum, for your very clear and precise narrative of the situation on ground. And we're praying that at some point, you know, justice will be served. Because another thing I also feel is important, is, which I wanted to ask you, but I'm running against time, is that the people who have lost their souls or who have died in this process, their families should be compensated. Is that something that both of you agree with?
I agree on compensation, but I don't know whether Nigeria... They will still steal the money.
Yes, I agree.
They will still steal the money.
Yeah. You see, compensation is critical because these people, if their source of livelihood has all been destroyed, so they need to be compensated. And in this particular call, I would like to call on the governor of Benue State to lead us in front. Stop being cheek in tongue. Speak out. If you, Dino said, if you speak, you will die. If you don't speak, you will die. So I call on my governor, His Excellency, Reverend Dr. Hyacinth Alia, speak out, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much.
We are behind you.
Oh, he's trying to choose words.
Whether you speak
to the
or you don't speak, you will die.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alex Adum. Thank you so much, Agba Jalingo.
God bless AG. God bless you. God bless Nigeria.
Thank you so much. And we hope for a better Nigeria. And we hope that this attention required in Benue State will be seen into and the needful will be done. Thank you so much for being with me on Perspectives this morning. In a country where mass death repeats like a drumbeat, silence can no longer be mistaken for neutrality. Nigerians don't need another committee. They need protection. Survivors don't need speeches. They need shelter. And perpetrators don't need a pass. They need to be prosecuted. Until that happens, until we see justice in Yelewata, there's no justice anywhere. So that's, and as I keep saying, life is a learning curve. That's what we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Rise News with me, Ruth Osime. We shall be here same time next week by the grace of God. Until then, stay positive. Goodbye.